Hey everybody, let me welcome you today to this taster session for the University of Lincoln Yoga Society. I'm Milan and I'll be using this session just to walk you through a bit of what yoga is all about, some meditation, and hopefully doing some practical practice as well. Hope you've had a great time settling in at the start of uni, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time today to come to this session, to deepen your practice and to try something new, hopefully, if this is your first time. So if you've got any injuries, you know your body better than I do, and I can't see you. So if there's something that you know or you think might be painful for you to do, like for your shoulders, for your wrists, just either adapt it to the way your body works, or just sit the session, just sit that part of the flow out. You can always go into the child's pose. And for those of you that don't know, the child's pose is just sitting like this and folding over, just relaxing and focusing on the breath. Because at its center, yoga really is a form of very physical meditation, and the focus on the breathing and the presence should always really come before the demands of the asana or the flow. So if you feel like the physical side of the practice is distracting as well, and you may not necessarily be injured, always go back into that child's pose or a cross-legged pose if that helps you focus on the breath. And I think that's all of the basic health and safety bit out of the way. So we'll be starting today's session just sitting cross-legged on your mat, or whichever position is comfortable for you really. So you go lotus, half lotus, or just a regular cross-legged seat. And we'll be starting the session with a 5-minute meditation. Nothing too fancy, mostly just grounding yourself in the moment. Maybe setting an intention for what you'd like to get out of today's session. So from this cross-legged position, you don't have to close your eyes just yet. You're going to take in the surroundings, allow everything to settle in to the background of consciousness. Allowing your breath to settle into a steady, slow rhythm. As your body comes to rest, you're not forcing it into any particular style of breath, you're just allowing it to come and go as it pleases. And as you sit there, eyes open or closed, allow the sounds in the background to come to your awareness. And take this time to notice as much as you can. Noticing how all these sounds, these distractions, they fade in and out of your awareness at their own will. And without your conscious attention, they'll just keep on fading in and out. You'll find that you don't have to really do anything. You don't have to pay attention. Your subconscious will still take everything in, and you can be free to direct your attention elsewhere. Next, when you're ready, eyes closed, allowing your attention to come that little bit further in. So you've become aware of the space around you, you've acknowledged it, and your attention moves even further inward into the body. I'm going to do a little body scan here. So if you like, you can take your hand, right or left, doesn't matter, just pop it on top of your head, so this creates a nice physical anchor for your focus. Just tap that spot, become more aware of it, and then allow your attention to trickle down the body like honey coming off of a spoon, nice and slowly. And depending on the way your brain works, this attention could be something visual, it could be a sound, or maybe a feeling, a sort of vibration, slowly moving down the body. And you're not trying to change anything. You're simply noticing whatever comes your way. Bringing attention to your face, your ears, shoulders, and in your own time, eventually making your way to the base. Now after you've fully checked in with your body, grounded yourself in this space, in this body, allow your attention to drift even further inwards onto the breath, allowing it to take up your whole conscious field. And specifically, you're trying to focus on the breath that you're experiencing right now. You're not anticipating the next one. You're not trying to remember what the last one felt. Just allow your attention to be filled with wherever you feel the breath the most as you're experiencing it. And should you feel thoughts, to-do lists, all sorts of attention grabbing little mental figments coming to the surface, just let them be there and give them the same attention that you would the breath, just observing it as it is, noticing how they make your body feel, whether they make you tense up a little bit if it's a nervous thought, maybe even feeling where your eyes go under your closed eyelids, seeing where they bounce around in response to this thought. And eventually, hopefully, as you give your thoughts the same attention that you are the breath, they will eventually fade away into the background. And when you're ready, just returning back to the breath in that present moment. Experiencing where the breath is for you, whether it's in the core, in the shoulders, the cool rush coming in through the nose, down the throat, expanding the upper body. And when you're ready, completely letting go of focus, allow your mind to go blank for a little while. Relaxing into the moment as we prepare for today's practice. Just place your hands in front of your chest. Start rubbing them together, generating a little bit of heat. When you're ready, placing your hands over your eyes, slowly opening them into the warmth and arriving in the present moment. So just set your intention, whether it is just to focus on the breath throughout the class, to give extra attention to the movement of the body, or just to relax and regain your energies. And when you're ready, we're going to start today's class with some seated stretches. And the way we're going to do this is, let me first say that the way that my class will often be structured will be pretty similar from week to week, just focusing on different elements. So it'll always be a meditation, either a short one or a long one at the start, and starting some warm-up exercises, then going to the main focus of the practice, whether this be flexibility or strength or just whatever other poses you can think of, whether it's working towards a peak pose or towards a particular theme. And today's theme is just going to be working on those basic exercises with an emphasis towards really stretching out the different parts of the body that often accumulate stress. To start off with, we're going to do the seated one. And the important thing to note here, I want you just to grab your hips, just feel where they are, and try to equally ground them into your mat. And as we do this stretch, I would really like you to focus on keeping both of these hips really grounded, because often the temptation is, when you're doing a seated stretch like this, reaching over, that in order to get that appearance of extra length, you may be tempted to let that hip just come up. But I promise you, if you keep this hip grounded, you're going to feel the stretch a lot better, even if you can't go as far, and it'll hopefully get a little bit lower into the lower back as well. So we're going to try to do this with the breath, but there's no stress. Just try to copy the movement. So we're going to inhale, reach up, exhale, allow your right hand to drop to the ground, and just keeping that left hip grounded here, allowing your arms to come over, you stretch up and out, and hopefully you'll be feeling a nice stretch along your lower back, along the lats, maybe a little bit of the tricep as well here, since you're reaching over like this. Like, you don't necessarily have to allow the elbow to come down. You can just rest your hand here and slowly allow yourself to go as far as the hip will allow. So whether that's up here or down here, it's all good. Stay here for a while. Just a couple more breaths. And on the next inhale, coming all the way up, and exhale over to the other side. So once again, focusing on keeping both hips firmly pressed into the mat. If you like, you can let your drishti, your gaze, your focus be towards this outstretched thumb. All the while trying to become more aware of the breath. Just staying in the present. When you're ready, inhale up and allow your hands to come down by your side. So the next stretch we're going to do is still going to be sort of back focused. It's going to be a bit more of a stretch. So what you can do is you can place your right foot to the outside of the left leg. I'm hoping that this is still in frame because I've got no idea. But anyway, so you've got your right foot to the outside of your left knee, using that as a bolster here. You can inhale, reach up, and then you can place, you see that left elbow to that right knee, and reaching back and out. And then you can just use your upper body here to twist your back. And maybe you'll hear a little pop there, a little crack as the vertebrae realign. And for this, your focus, your visual focus, should be out back like this, and I'm just going to give that little extra element of the stretch. Just a couple more breaths in this posture. So your hands are just resting behind you, outstretched. You're not reaching particularly far. It's just providing support between these 2 points. Deep breath in and coming out of the stretch. So we're going to swap over now to the other side. So left leg, right knee, providing that bolster here. And inhale, reach up. Exhale, place and reach back. Allow your gaze to follow. Let's give it 2 to 3 more breaths. And if I seem at all agitated, that's because my nose is really, like, what do you call, like, tickly? I think that's the English one for it. and coming out of the posture. So we're back in the cross-legged position here, and we're going to use this to roll over the knees like so into the tabletop, or this four-legged posture here. So you're going to move your hands below your shoulders and your knees below your hips, and we can do some cat-cows. So the cow is the inhale part, where you sort of tilt the hips like, and that's going to initiate the movement here to bring more space into the center of the body. And you can look up, deep breath in, and then now for the cat part, you're going to initiate the movement again from the hips, almost like your body is a whip here. So just twist the hips in, round the back, round the shoulders. Exhale, try to push your belly button into your spine. So you can do that in your own time now for a bit. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. So let's give that about 4 more rounds. That's going to help warm up the spine, get the blood flowing. And coming back to the center. So from here we're going to transition into a standing pose. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come into our downward facing dog. So if you've never done a downward facing dog, just wait a second while I think about how to tell you how to do this. First I'm going to demonstrate it. So you can point your toes towards the mat here, and then you're going to push yourself back into the downward facing dog. So you're going to have 4 extremities on the floor again, and you're going to try to create a straight line here between your wrist and your hips. So if that's difficult because of hamstring flexibility, you're alright just to bend your knees a little bit. The key component of this posture, as you'd say, is this straightness in the upper body here. You're opening up the shoulders. But that's all for a later day, I guess. Just try to focus on getting that basic shape here of straight legs, straight arms in this sort of 4-legged position. And then we can just walk our legs to the front of the mat, and on the inhale, coming up to standing. So what we're going to do now is just a couple of rounds of sun salutations, or Surya Namaskara classical. And the reason I've included this one in this flow is because, especially for the lunges, is one thing at a time. Anyway, so because it's a really good warm-up exercise that helps bring warmth to the body, limber up the muscles, but specifically I included it because of the lunges in it, which really stretch out the upper thigh here and the psoas muscle in the hips. And this often gets very cramped if you're sitting a lot all day, or if you do something like cycling or rowing, and that's going to help loosen that up for you and hopefully prevent any sort of back pain or any other complications that arise with that. So to start off your Surya Namaskara, or sun salutation, we're going to come into our Tadasana. Tadasana is just your standing sort of pose that you have at the end of it. The way we're going to do that is we're going to have our feet together like this. If you can see them, so sort of heels together, firmly planted in the ground. You can try to lift your toes up and really try to grab the mat. And yeah, just try to get as much of your foot on the floor as possible here. The next step is you're just going to rotate your pelvis down a little bit, almost as if there's a string at the end of your tailbone. That's going to just put you into a nice neutral position, working your way up, sort of stood to attention, chin up, shoulders back, and Tadasana. Nice and relaxed in this standing position. If you've already done a sun salutation, you're more than welcome to do the next round with me. If not, just watch as I try to explain it. And you don't have to worry too much about the breath. I'm just going to say the breathing cues anyway. However, you don't have to follow along with them if you can't quite hold the breath or you need to think about the position a little bit. I'm going to go nice and slowly. So on So you find your Tadasana here. You can inhale, reach up and back a little bit. And then exhale, hands to the ground. If you can't quite have straight legs here, that's fine. You can bend them a little bit to make it easier. And then on the inhale, we're going to lead with the left foot back. So with this classical variation, you're always going to lead with the left foot because it's the one associated with the heart and the sun element. So one variation that we could do, that we're going to do for the first round together, will be a lunge with both hands on the mat in front of you. It's going to be nice and easy on the balance. Or if you want it a little bit harder, you want a bit more of a stretch, you can do a lunge like so, with hands in prayer position above the body and weight back, and that's going to put even more stretch onto that like hip, upper thigh, psoas region where we're on an inhale. Okay, and then we're going to exhale, bring your feet back. So in this sort of plank position here, you're going to hold the breath, and then we're going to bring our knees to the ground, chest, chin, inhale, up into your little baby cobra. So your upper legs are just pressed into the mat. Try to keep your shoulders away from the ears. So this is on the inhale, exhale, come back into your downward facing dog here. So whichever variation you like, whether bent knees, straight knees. And next inhale, leading with the left foot again, going into that lunge, either low lunge here or low lunge, your hands above. Then come to the exhale, bring your right foot forward to meet your left. Inhale, coming up, exhale, down. I'd say any questions, but unfortunately I can't hear you. So we're just going to do a few rounds of that. I'll try to be as slow and clear as possible, and hopefully we can all get to a similar level here. So you're going to find your Tadasana at the front of the mat. So remember, really grabbing the mat with all corners of the feet, neutral pelvis, shoulders back, hands out. Inhale, reaching up. Really feel that stretch on the front. You can lean back a little bit here for the classical variation. And then on the exhale, coming down. Always try to touch the floor, touch your toes. As always, bend the knees if it makes it a little bit easier for you. Inhale, leading with that left foot back as you come into your low lunge of choice, whether it's hands at the front or lifting up. A little bit deeper stretch in that slight balance challenge. Exhale, hands to the ground, right leg back, coming into your plank. Knees, chest and chin, and inhale up into your baby cobra. So just go as far as you feel comfortable. You don't have to fully extend your arms here. You can just push yourself up a little bit or a little bit more, whichever works. Exhale, toes to the ground, downward facing dog. Inhale, left foot forward into your lunge of choice. And exhale, hands to the ground, right foot forward into your standing forward fold. Inhale, reaching up, exhale, coming down. You can do 2 more rounds of that before we go towards the main focus of today, which can be a few stretches. So Tadasana, the front of the mat. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, reaching down. Inhale, leading with that left foot back into a lunge. Exhale, right foot back into your plank here, holding the breath if possible. Knees, chest, chin. Inhale into your little baby cobra. Exhale, toes to the ground, coming back into your downward facing dog. Inhale, left foot forward into your lunge of choice. Exhale, hands, foot forward into your standing forward fold. Inhale, up. Exhale, Tadasana. Just taking a round of rest breath here. Hopefully you'll be feeling a little bit warmer now as the pose starts to limber up the body, get the energy flowing. Okay, final round. Find your Tadasana. Really grab the mat with your feet so you can lift the toes here and then grab the mat. Pelvis, shoulders, hands. Inhale up. Exhale down. One thing to note about the way down is if you've got some weakness in the lower back, rather than doing the full keeping the hands extended out, you can almost do a little swan dive. So basically reducing the weight that's on the spine by bringing your hands around and down. Inhale, left foot back into a lunge of choice. Exhale, hands, right foot back into your plank, holding the breath if possible. Knees, chest, chin. Inhale into a little baby cobra. Exhale, coming back into your downward facing dog. Inhale, leading with the hard foot. And exhale, bring that right foot forward. Enjoying that stretch here, trying to bring your palms to the ground. Inhale, reaching up. Exhale, Tadasana. Taking a few rounds of restful breathing here. So now we can do a little bit of the tree pose, just to work on our balance. Don't forget to stay hydrated. So just like with the sun salutation, we're going to start off from our Tadasana. So just trying to grab the mat with our feet. And we're going to slowly shift the weight onto that right foot. So you can bend that left knee as you take the weight off of that foot. You can start off either by above the ankle on the shin, or you can try to place your foot a little bit higher on the leg if you're comfortable. The next point I was going to make is that ideally you want to try to rotate that knee out to really give that hip to give the hip a bit of a stretch here. And that's going to take care of the lower part of the pose. So you can start off with your hands over your chest. Try and focus your eyes on a stable spot in the distance. And what this pose is going to do is going to help strengthen your balance as well as improving your proprioception a little bit, so your experience of the body as you become more aware of how it sits in space. If you wish, you can inhale, reach up and open up the canopy of the tree, whether it's a tall tree like this or a nice little wide tree like this. It's really up to you, yogi's choice. Try and keep the hips level here. Also, important safety note is don't put your feet onto the knee joint itself. Put them above or below, whichever is more comfortable for you. Alright, close the canopy, come back to the center and drop your foot. You can shake out supporting leg if you wish. And in poses like these that require two sides of the body, you'll often find that there is some imbalance between the two sides. For me personally, I think the left leg is a little bit easier to balance. So once again, come to your Tadasana, just prepare for the next round. Bend your right leg this time, take the weight off. You can start at the ankle or work your way up into the upper thigh, wherever's comfortable for you. So opening up the hips, keeping the hips level with the front, and then rotating that knee outwards if possible. Hands to the chest. Inhale up and open. Just focus on that stable point in the distance. Check in with your body, the breath. Try to relax the shoulders to signal to your body that you're in a restful state. You don't need to run from anything. Alright, close the canopy, come back to the center and drop. So we're not going to do any fancy transitions for this next bit, we're just going to slowly work our way into this posture. And that's one of my favorite ones, which is the inverted triangle or Pravrita Trikonasana. So the way we can do this is just walk your way back a bit on the mat. And bring your left foot forward. This isn't anything to do with the heart, it's just the first foot I thought of. So you're going to have your back foot at about 45 degrees, pointing out like that, in order to bring your hips level with the front of the mat. So your left foot here, your front foot, is pointed straight forward, back foot about 45 degrees, and you've got a comfortable distance here between the 2 feet. So you might try to align the front heel to the back heel. I think that covers the base of the posture. So you can inhale, reach up, stretch yourself out a little bit, and then on the way down, as you're going into the stretch with the exhale, you're going to lead with your right arm whilst keeping everything else here flat, reaching up. This can be a bit challenging on the balance. So if you find it's a little bit difficult, maybe open up the posture a little bit. And if you feel like you're sort of collapsing into it a little bit, just rest your hand a little bit higher to make it a little bit easier on yourself, because you're not going to go into the posture straight away with perfect form. Just adapt it to the way that your body works so you can focus on the mindfulness element of the practice and on the breath, and gradually over time you're going to build your way up into this posture. So the key here is to try to keep the hips nice and level and not allowing one to drop in order to give you a bit more twist. Just keeping this back part level and twisting the upper body. And it's going to really help by opening up the upper body as well as stretching the back a little bit and strengthening your balance and your leg posture. And when you're ready, just dropping your hands here and walking that back foot forward to the front of the mat. This time just walking your left foot back. Once again finding that base, nice wide stance, back foot about 45 degrees, so pointing out within this sort of radius. Bring that hip forward so it's square with the front of the mat. Inhale, reaching up, stretch a little bit. Exhale, folding forward. Bring your chest to face out towards your right side. And inhale, open up. Do this for a few more breaths. As always, if you find it a little bit challenging, you can always go into the child's pose, like we said at the start of the session. Ideally, you might have a block for this, so you could place it on the ground here and make it a little bit easier on the balance. And then slowly to progress through the posture, you can take away one more edge of the block and work your way down. And exhale, relax. Bring that foot forward. into your standing forward fold. So while we're in this position, just relax the upper body. Allow your head to hang loose, shake it about. Maybe even give your legs a little bit of a hug, which allowing gravity to do most of the work for this stretch. And slowly with the breath, working your way up into standing. Now we're just going to do another stretch that requires the opening of the legs. So we're going to do the wide-legged forward fold variation C. And what that's going to involve, once you've come into your first position, so where was I? Standing at the front of the mat, opening up your right foot. So it doesn't really matter which foot really, but whichever one helps you face the front of the mat. So the wider it is, makes it easier. The closer together it is, it's a little bit more challenging. What this is going to do is going to help open up the hips, as well as providing a really great gentle hamstring stretch. And for variation C, as I was saying, this is going to involve interlocking your hands behind your back like so. Before you fold, inhale, sort of puff your chest out here. Keep your arms locked out, and exhale, folding at the hips. You're keeping a nice straight upper body here, and you're leading with the heart, as opposed to just like collapsing down. You're going to try to bring that fist over the top as far as you're comfortable, really. This can help relieve a lot of shoulder tension as well. Really wrings out the muscles at the top. I'm going to spend, let's say, 3 to 4 breaths in this posture. If you like, you can release the arms here, and on the next inhale, slowly bring yourself back up, just making sure that you don't pass out from the blood rushing out of the head. Come to the front of the mat, into our Tadasana. We're going to inhale up, exhale, hands down to the mat, and then we're going to go even further down into our four-legged posture. So this can be our prep for our downward facing dog here. That's going to give you a really good idea of where to place your feet and your hands in future sessions. So we're going to once again have our knees below our hips, our hands below our shoulders, point the toes towards the mat. So basically what I'm trying to say is that from this position we're going to transition to the downward facing dog and then into our pigeon pose, and that's going to really help stretch out the hips. For those of you who haven't done pigeon pose, I'm going to quickly demonstrate how to do that. So from our from our four-legged position, point your toes down, come back into downward facing dog. And then if you're starting with the right side, for example, you'd come forward, bring your knee towards that front hand. And depending on how hard you want the position to be, you'll bring your heels forward in line with the knee for the harder variety, or closer towards the hips for the easier variety. So like a bit of more of a sharper angle. You just sit here like this. You can use your elbows to rest, to try and keep the spine neutral in this position and just allow gravity to do the work. And I hope that sort of gives you an idea of how to do the pigeon pose. So the key points of the pigeon pose here are bringing that knee forward to your hand, and adjusting this bit here depending on how hard you want it. So if you wanted it harder, you'd sort of bring it up towards that left hand. If you wanted it easier, sort of bring it back towards that back foot. This is going to be especially important if you're experiencing any sort of like knee pain, because often it can be a bit difficult on the knee here. So maybe start off with the easier variety. Coming back to our four-legged position here, Inhale to prepare for downward facing dog. Exhale, point the toes, come back here. So we're going to come forward, bring that right knee to the front of the mat, place it on the ground, and then lower yourself onto the mat. So you can bring your elbows as a stabilizer here, rest your head. Just take a few breaths in this posture, and hopefully you can feel it starting to work on the hips, on the glutes. Just opening up the lower body. When you're ready to come out of the pose, place your hands back on the mat, point that back toe, and come back into your downward facing dog. I'm not going to spend too long here since it can be a little bit exhausting on the shoulders and arms. So shifting forward, once again, this time bringing your left knee forward and lowering yourself into the posture. Once again, spending about 4 breaths, just relaxing. In these moments of stillness, in between postures, you may find it beneficial just to return your attention to the breath, experiencing your body as it is in space. And when you're ready, place your hands on the mat, push yourself back into your downward facing dog, drop your knees onto the floor and come into your seated position as we started the session. So the first set that we're going to do for this lower body stretch is going to be Janu Shirshasana, or the one-legged head to knee pose sort of deal. So just like a one-legged leg stretch. So to start this pose off, we're going to once again push our hips into the ground here, making sure they're level. And on the inhale, reaching up. Exhale, twist the body towards the toe, and then leading with the heart, just allowing your hands to fall wherever they will be. So the reason I say that is that this helps keep your upper body nice and straight and get that like lever action on the hamstrings. Because you may be tempted to get a little bit more reach by collapsing the upper body here and trying to almost make it appear as though you're going deeper by like bringing your head towards it. But we're just focusing here on the hip movement here. So nice straight upper body. You can allow your hands to rest by the side of your leg as you work your way into the posture. Once again, just experiencing the breath as it comes and goes. Spending a little bit longer in this stretch as we wind down towards the end of this little taster. Inhale, coming out of the pose and swapping over. So grounded hips, upper body in line with hips. Inhale, reach up, twist the body and fold. Just allowing your hands to fall where they will. If you've got any props, if you find this stretch too easy, you could put a block here in order to increase the distance you've got to reach. Or if you're struggling with flexibility a little bit, you could use a strap here or a belt. Just to sort of keep that upright body posture, sort of pinching your shoulders back and allowing yourself to go into this posture with a straight upper body. final stretch we're going to do for the hamstrings would be Paschimottanasana, or the like the two-legged seated stretch. Before we do that, we're just going to quickly do Baddha Konasana, or the butterfly pose. So for this, bring your feet a comfortable distance away from your hips. You can bring them together, knees up like this, and then opening up like a book. So you've got your feet sort of pointing up towards the ceiling, and just let your knees fall out to the side with gravity. Keeping hips grounded here, we're going to inhale, straighten up the body, and just like with that one-legged stretch, we're going to try to keep a nice straight upper body here, and just allow it to stop whenever your body tells you to. Like, you're not collapsing to reach, you're just allowing it to sit wherever your body tells you. And then hopefully with each session, you can slowly just ease it a little bit further. So the way you're thinking about this almost is that you're trying to keep, like you're trying to push against an invisible hand with the top of your head here in order to keep the integrity of the upper body during the posture. Focusing on the breath, feeling where it is in the body, and slowly coming out of the posture. Straighten up your legs out in front of you, grounding the hips here. Inhale up and exhale, just listening to the body where it wants to stop the stretch. So you can leave your hands just by the side. It's all good. So like I said, if you've got a belt or a strap available, you could have it around your feet here, just to get that little bit of extra stretch that you get from having the toes back. And if you're struggling with hamstring flexibility a bit, one thing you can do is just point your toes forward, as this will give you a little bit more give within that muscular band. Another important thing to remember when you're stretching your hamstrings is that you can also add a little bit more give by just relaxing your jaw. It's all connected through one muscular band, and by adding relaxation in one part of the system, it'll give you a little bit more give. Nice relaxed face, giving yourself that little bit of extra flexibility. Inhale, coming out of the posture. And when you're ready, just lying back on the mat for the most important part of the session. And that is Shavasana, the corpse pose. Lying back, closing your eyes, allowing your mind to go blank, your breath to go soft, directionless. When you're ready, slowly deepening the breath, arriving back in the body. You start to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, adding elements of movement back, elements of life. When you're ready, you can push yourself onto your left side, bringing your heart to the earth. and push yourself back up into a cross-legged position. So I hope that you enjoyed this taster session. Hopefully consider practicing with us, the other teachers, more in the future. I'd like to thank you for taking this time to come to the mat, to take part in this practice and get to know a little bit more about yoga. And if you've got any questions or suggestions, please make sure to reach out to the committee. If anything you'd like to see more of, or anything you might not have liked as much. And yeah, it's been my pleasure. Namaste.